So now you have your home lab set up and it's time to get some SSL certificates to it and enable it remote access. And this one, I'm going to show you just how you do that. Let's get into it. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Ryan. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to take a look at NGINX Proxy. This is a reverse proxy. And basically what this does is when an outside source tries to access your website or a service, it is the in-between from the public to your internal server. And when they try to ping or access stuff, it's going to go through Cloudflare, and then Cloudflare will send that access. So the end user never sees any of your internal stuff. So we're going to get that set up. We're going to install on Docker, and then we're going to set up certificates with Let's Encrypt, and all of this is going to be through Cloudflare. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first step, which is installing NGINX Proxy on Docker. The first thing we need to do is make our docker-compose file. And this is the example I'm going to use. I pull it directly from the NGINX Proxy Manager site. This is how they suggest you do it. We're not going to monkey with anything. I'll put a link in the description of where you can go look at that. And I can also put this, script in the description below. You don't have to copy it off the screen or anything. So let's look through it real quick. What we're going to do here is we have, services, the app, the image. So this is going to pull the latest version of this installation. We'll do container name. I'm calling it NGINX Proxy Manager. This is just how the Docker container, the name it shows up with. If you're using Portainer, that's what the name's going to be. And then we'll do restart. We want it to restart always unless we specifically stop it. We're mapping the ports. So 80 to 80, 81 to 81, 443 to 443. And then our volumes. So we have, by default, it's going to go data, map to data, and then Let's Encrypt goes to etc Let's Encrypt. The thing here is we are going to use Let's Encrypt for our SSL certificates. And what this is going to end up doing is allow us to do actual domain names for our home lab. So we don't have to remember IP addresses anymore. We can start doing domain names. For example, let's say if we're running Pi-hole, we can do piehole.techforgood.com, let's say, and that could go to our Pi-hole instance. So this is going to be a great opportunity for you to use a domain name for this. If you need a domain name, I'll put a link in the description below of where you can get a domain name. I use Namecheap. They've been great. I've used them for many years. So what we'll do here is if you want to change any of this, go ahead. If not, we're just going to copy and reuse it. So the next step, since we're using a Docker Compose file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this via the command line. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and SSH into your server that has Docker on it, and then we'll get our Docker Compose file all set up. Here we are SSH'd into our server, and I have a folder called Docker that I like to keep all my stuff in. You can do whatever you want, keep everything default. The first thing we need to do is make our directories. And so if we go back and we look at this Docker Compose, we see we need to have a Let's Encrypt and a data. So what I'm going to do is create those, but I want to put it in its own directory. So let me see what I have here. I already created the NGINX Proxy Manager directory. You can create whatever you want if you wish to do it this way. So I'm going to go cd, get in there. And then what we need to do for my example is I'm going to create a data and then a Let's Encrypt. So I'll go make dir data and make dir let's. So now I have those two folders in there. And the next part we need to do is make our actual Docker Compose. So we want to go nano docker-compose.yml. And this is making basically a text file, if you will, in Linux. And what we need to do is we need to take all of this stuff that we have here. We're going to go ahead and copy it, and then we'll go ahead and paste it in here. And again, if there's anything you're going to change, do that now. Most likely you might want to change the container name if you don't want to call it that. Or, if you have specific places you want to put the volumes, you can go ahead and do that. So now we go ahead and exit out of this. And then we see there's our Docker Compose. So go ahead and clear out, just get a little better screen going here. And the next thing we want to do is run our Docker Compose file. So we'll go docker compose up and then -d. I'm doing the -d because I don't want to have, hit enter or anything when it's going through the install. So we'll run that. It's going to go ahead and start pulling the application or the image. You can see there's 36 things it's going to do. And while this is doing that, we'll recap real quick what we're doing. Right now, we created our folders. We created our Docker Compose file. We've run it, and now it's pulling the information or pulling the image down, adding it to Docker, and it's going to go ahead and install it. Once this gets installed, what we'll do is we'll take a look and make sure it put everything in the correct directories, because I did, my own data folder and I did my own Let's Encrypt folder. And then we can take a look over at our Portainer setup and make sure that it added there. So you can see here, our network was created. So, and then our container itself was created. So it should be up and running now. We'll head over to Portainer and let's see and make sure. So right here, you can see our, Portainer, and we have the NGINX Proxy Manager right here. If we look back at our Docker Compose file, I'm gonna bring this back over here for you to see. You can see we called it NGINX Proxy Manager, and then that's right here what it called it in Portainer or in Docker, but we're looking at Portainer. So that's great news. You can see our ports 443, 80, and 81. That's what we did here. And then if we go into the container itself, you can see what we set up here for the volumes is all right there. So we are ready to go. Let's go ahead and get into NGINX Proxy Manager and set up our credentials, and then we will go ahead and set up our first SSL certificate and everything. We'll get that configured and going. To access your NGINX Proxy Manager login screen, you need to go to the IP address of this server that you have this installed on, and then :81. So if it comes up with an error about it being not secure, you need to go HTTP and not HTTPS. To log into NGINX Proxy Manager, the first thing you have to do is the email address and the password. The email address, it's all default with this. So it's going to be admin@example.com, and then the password is change me. I'll put this in the description below. You'll go ahead and click sign in, and it's going to ask you fill out your new administrator stuff. Admin, your name, your nickname, or your login name, etc., and your email address. So go ahead and fill this out with whatever you want to call it, and go ahead and click save. After you click save, it's going to come up with the change your password. Go ahead and type in change me for your password here, because that's the current password. And then you'll type in your new password twice in there and click save. After you get logged in here, this is the main screen. Before we get into the setup here, what we have to do is we have to make sure we have a domain name, and that domain name is pointed to the correct location. So you can use a provider like DuckDNS if you don't have your own domain name. But this video, I'm going to go over a customized vanity URL. Again, if you need one, I'll put a link in the description below to Namecheap where you can pick one up. I use them. There's always coupons. It's a great price. So we're going to go over to our friends over at Cloudflare. You need to have an account created already and have your domain name all set up. I can do a video on that if you need to figure that out. But for this video, we're going to assume you already have this set up at Cloudflare. And what we need to do is set up two different DNS entries. And what that's going to do is going to take our domain name and it's going to point it to the IP address of where this needs to go. So what we need to do is over here on the left side under your domain name, we'll click DNS, and then you're going to click add record. The two records we need to add are going to be a CNAME and then kind of just a catch-all. So what you need to do here is make sure it's an A record. The next portion here, you need to type in the domain name and then the IP address here. And the IP address is going to be the IP to the server itself. So for example, if you have an internal server that, let's say it's the IP address to your NGINX Proxy Manager is 192.168.1.100, you'll type that in right here. You're not going to type in the external IP address to your router or anything. The reason is we're going to set something up later with an API key that Cloudflare is going to know exactly what to do. Go ahead and enter your IP address information right here. And then we do not want it to be proxied, so we will uncheck that. We want DNS only, and we'll click save. And then the next one we need to do is a CNAME record. So we'll click CNAME. And then here, we're just going to do a star because we just want a wildcard for anything. And then it's going to go to that domain name that we did earlier. And then we don't want this proxied either. So we'll uncheck the proxy and we'll click save. Now we should be able to access our, our website, etc., via that stuff. So if we go back over here to our NGINX Proxy Manager, what we need to do is click on SSL certificates up top. We'll do new, and our domains, we're going to do whatever your domain is. So it's going to be your domain, .com or whatever, and then we're going to do star.yourdomain.whatever. Make sure you click add, and then we'll do star. So this should be kind of a catch-all for everything there. Then what you're going to do here is go ahead and click test server, reachability. And for me, it's found, it's good to go. It should be possible. It's just taking a while for it to catch up because we just did the naming. So you can try all that stuff later, whatever you want there. For your email address, type in whatever email address you want Let's Encrypt to use. We're going to go ahead and use DNS challenge. We're going to choose our provider. So for this one, we're doing Cloudflare. You could do stuff like, DuckDNS. There's, do they have Namecheap in here? I'm assuming they probably do. There's Namecheap. So whoever your DNS provider is, for this, you'll choose that there. For me, it's going to be Cloudflare. And then here you can see it wants a Cloudflare API key. We need to go set that up. So before we click save, let's head back over to Cloudflare and we'll get our API key set up. Back here on Cloudflare, we're going to go ahead and create our API key. And once again, this is all completely free. Just make sure when you added your domain name, you chose the free plan. This will work perfect. So you want to go into your account profile. On the left side, you have API tokens, and we're going to create a token. So we'll click create token. And what we need to do here, we want to do an edit zone DNS. So we'll click use template. This first part, we want to keep it zone DNS edit. There's no problem here. For the second part, we're going to do include specific zone. And then here on the right box, we're going to assign this to the domain name we want this, API key to be used for. So whatever we set up back in NGINX Proxy Manager and the DNS section here on Cloudflare, choose that domain from the dropdown. And the rest we can leave default. So we'll continue to summary, and then we'll go ahead and create token. What you're going to do here is you're going to copy this token here. It's in this box. Don't worry, by the time this video comes out, this token is deleted. So we'll copy that token. We'll go back over to NGINX Proxy Manager. Right here where it says DNS Cloudflare API token. So where that 0 starts, we're going to go ahead and delete all of that and paste our API token in right there. We can do I agree to Let's Encrypt terms of service, and then we'll click save. And if everything works, we should get a nice little thumbs up. You're good to go. It might take a minute. Also remember, DNS stuff does take a while to make those changes. If for some reason this errors out, you can go back like an hour later and try it again. So, and then there we go. We have our first SSL Let's Encrypt stuff set up. You can see here under name, we have our domain names, our certificate providers, Let's Encrypt, and then when our SSL expires. It says inactive because we're not using it yet. What we need to do now is go over and let's create an actual server or, a redirect, and let's get this all created. So we can go back to home if you want and do proxy hosts. And here we're going to do add proxy host. This is going to be the name of what we want to do here. So for this example, let's just go nginx.vistalab.com. This is my fake little company here. And then is it going to be HTTP or HTTPS? And then the IP address, not the whole HTTP, all that stuff, and not the colon and port, just the IP address. So this one, go ahead and type in whatever your IP address is there. So for NGINX Proxy Manager, it's going to be 81, whatever your port is going to be. So we'll do 81. And then we can go ahead and, if you need to do WebSocket support, block exploits, etc. If you want to be publicly accessible, it's up to you. You can create an access list. We're going to go over here to SSL, and then we want to use, the drop down here, this bottom one, or whatever you just created with your Let's Encrypt SSL certificate. So I'll choose that. I want to force SSL, and then I'm going to go HTTP support. And then there's other stuff here if you want to do that. I'm not going to do that if there's custom locations, but we're just going to click save, and then look at that. We now have nginx.vistalab.com. It points to whatever this destination is. It's using Let's Encrypt SSL. It's public and it's online. If we go to our SSL certificates, you can now see the status is in use. So really cool. If we go refresh this, and now you can see this is all set up. So under our proxy host, we have nginx.vistalab.com, or yours is going to be whatever your domain name is, right? Points to the IP address. Again, this is the IP address to that Docker server, that you have running, and then whatever port. So port 81 for NGINX Proxy Manager, SSL is going, it's public, it's online. Now, if we go over to our SSL certificates, you can see before it said inactive, now it's in use. So what we can do now is, because we have this all set up via this domain name, we can actually go to this and it should work. You don't have to remember the IP address or the port. So let me go ahead and click on it, and there you go. Look at it, just automatically opened up. We are good to go. It's protected. So if we go to connection is secure, we can see certificate is valid and it's Let's Encrypt, tells us when it was, issued on, when it expires. You're good to go. Like, this is a free SSL for your internal hosting, stuff like that. Really cool setup. And there you have it. That is how you set up NGINX Proxy Manager on Docker, and also set up your own SSL certificates for your internal servers. Now, a real quick caveat here, you need to have something that is going to be able to do your DNS stuff internally. So if you have something running like this server, like I said earlier, if it's 192.168.1.100 and you type, and you sign it nginx.whatever.com, you have to have something internally that knows how to kind of, set that up and do DNS. So whether that's your router or you do Pi-hole, like for example, I'm going to do Pi-hole in the future, and I'm going to set it up so it does all my DNS and knows where to send all the, the server requests, etc. For the example here, because I'm doing it on my VPS through Velox Media, I don't have to have that all set up that DNS because it's an external site. So internally, you're going to need something that knows how to translate your server name to the IP address. Again, that's how you do it. I hope you enjoyed that video. I'm going to put in the description below the commands we use for the Docker Compose. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to try to help you out. A future video, I'll probably do something on how to password protect your site through Cloudflare, because that's going to be pretty important. And I really appreciate if you follow the channel. We're still getting this channel Tech for Good built up. Appreciate all the support. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, share, all that stuff. So until next time, stay safe, have fun, and keep doing good.